1. World Bank to change classification of countries. India will now be called lower middle income. GS Paper 3. Indian economy and issues relating to planning, mobilization of resources, growth, development and employment. Why is it in news recently? With the World Bank switching to more precise descriptions of economies, India will be called as lower middle income country. South Asia. India till now found a place under the common umbrella with other developing countries. For decades, developed and developing have served as agreeable economic nomenclatures to classify countries based on their prosperity and standards of living. Till now, developing stood for low and middle income countries while high income countries were called developed. A fast-changing world has made the earlier terms less relevant and not reflective of the heterogeneous sample of countries. Need for such classification. Rising global prosperity coupled with growing inequality will now call for a sharper, less benign, and certainly less politically correct, nomenclatures. The more specific definitions are aimed at categorizing economies which, though developing in character, differ dramatically from one another. For instance, India, Mexico and Malawi may be hardly comparable even if a few economic and social parameters overlap. Economies becoming less and less homogeneous. The multilateral agency will group countries based on geographical coverage and income levels to capture the changing world. Where will India stand as far as categorization of World Bank is concerned? For instance, Mexico, China and Brazil are upper middle income, India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh are lower middle income, a categorization that could irk not only New Delhi but most Indians. According to the World Bank data, India languishes on world indicators like labor force participation rate, electricity generation and access to improved sanitation facilities. However, there is an improvement in certain aspects, such as under 5 mortality rate and maternal deaths. 2. India ranks 4th in Global Slavery Survey. GS Paper 1, Salient Features of Indian Society. Why is it in news recently? India has been ranked 4th in a global survey that lists 167 countries where modern slavery is prevalent. The findings of the survey released on Monday indicate some 1.4% of the population, roughly around 18 million people, in the country is living under conditions of modern-day slavery. The segments implicated include domestic work, construction, sex industries, agriculture, fishing, manufacturing, manual labor and forced begging. How the survey was conducted in India. It was conducted across 15 states that account for 80% of the total population and covering nearly 14,000 respondents. The India State Survey 2016 was conducted by Gallup and the Walk Free Foundation, which has been conducting such annual global surveys since 2013. Where do other countries stand? North Korea, Uzbekistan, Cambodia, India and Qatar are the top 5 on the list that ranks the countries in terms of slavery as a proportion of population. However, India's absolute slavery figures remain highest with an estimated 18.35 million enslaved people, followed by China, 3.39 millions, Pakistan, 2.13 millions, Bangladesh, 1.53 millions, and Uzbekistan, 1.23 millions. Impacts of slavery in India. The prevalence of slavery severely affects the country's attractiveness as an investment destination. In India, the informal nature of its labor economy impacts on vulnerability and accounts for a large chunk of the incidence of modern slavery, with common drivers like poverty, deep structural inequalities like gender, caste, and is distinct state by state concerns. A big eye-opener was the fact that a lot of Indian workers face exploitation outside India, like construction workers from South India who work in the Middle East. The findings are likely to make a lot of people in India uneasy, if not embarrassed. Which states in India are vulnerable to slavery? Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand and Odisha were affected by Naxalite violence, where boys and girls between 6 and 12 years were recruited in specific children's units. UP is a source, transit and destination state for modern slavery. UP's 619-kilometer stretch of open borders with Nepal, proximity to Bangladesh and New Delhi, and home to tourist destinations of Varanasi and Agra, facilitate the flow of vulnerable people and impede the ability of law enforcement to detect human traffickers. The 2011 census showed that net migration out of Bihar stood at 1.7 million, making it the second highest state in India for out-migration. Bihar's proximity to Bangladesh and its 800 kilometers of open borders with Nepal facilitate the ease with which traffickers cross internationally without identification. Debt bondage is reported to be widespread in Maharashtra, particularly in unregulated industries such as construction, agriculture, mining and brick manufacturing. For example, borrowing money for marriages, festivals and funerals is a common practice among some tribal groups in the state, which can result in debt bondage.